What is Taoism? Who is Lao Tzu? The writing of Tao Te Ching. To those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. 2. If you want to lead them, you must place yourself behind them. 3. Doing nothing is better than being busy doing nothing. 4. When you accept yourself, the whole world accepts you. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. These wise phrases, which you've no doubt heard before, are over 2,000 years old. They come from Lao Tzu, what many consider to be the founding document of Taoism. This organized philosophy tradition is known for its care for nature, peace, and Taoism. Or Taoism is an indigenous Chinese philosophy. You can't call this a religion, some people do, but if you study Taoism, you will understand that this is not a religion, this is a philosophy, the point of view, the thought, of the ancient Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu. History? Taoism first appears during an incredible time in Chinese history, in 500 B.C. During this period, multiple philosophers put forward ideas on how to control people, armies, and states. But one philosopher stood on the sidelines, and laughed at the idea that humans could even begin to know the correct way to do things. Their minds and perspectives were so small. But this wise old gray-bearded, Lao Tzu, or the Old Master, write a splendor book about life. The story of Lao Tzu and the writing of Tao Te Ching. It's difficult to know much for certain about the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. It is also sometimes translated as Lao Tzu, or Lao Tse. Lao Tzu is said to have been a record keeper in the court of the central Chinese Zhou dynasty in the 5th century BC. Lao Tzu is tired of life in the Zhou court, as it grew increasingly morally corrupt. So he left for the western border of the Chinese Empire. Although he was dressed as a farmer, the border official recognized him. His name was Yin Shi, and asked him to write a book for him. According to this legend, what Lao Tzu wrote became the sacred text, known as the Tao Te Ching. After writing this book, Lao Tzu crossed the border and disappeared from history, perhaps to become a hermit. In reality, the Tao Te Ching is likely to be the compilation of the works of many authors over time. But stories about Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching, itself passed down through different Chinese philosophical schools for over 2,000 years. Lao Tzu was the leading figure in the spiritual practice, known as Taoism, which is more than 2,000 years old, and still popular today. There are at least 20 million Taoists, and perhaps even 500 million, living around the world now, especially in China and Taiwan. They practice meditation, chant scriptures, and worship a variety of gods and goddesses in temples. Taoists also make pilgrimages to 5 sacred mountains in eastern China, in order to pray at the temples and absorb spiritual energy from these holy places, which are believed to be governed by immortals. Taoism is deeply intertwined with other branches of thought, like Confucianism and Buddhism. There is a story about the 3 great Asian spiritual leaders, Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Buddha. All were meant to have tasted vinegar. Confucius found it sour, much like he found the world full of degenerate people, and Buddha found it bitter, much like he found the world to be full of suffering. But Lao Tzu found the world sweet. This is telling because Lao Tzu's philosophy tends to look at the apparent discord in the world, and see an underlying harmony, guided by something called the Tao Path. The Tao Te Ching gives instructions, often vague but generally open to multiple interpretations, on how to live a good life. It discusses the Tao as the way of the world, which is also the path to virtue, happiness, and harmony. The way isn't inherently confusing or difficult. But in order to follow the Tao, we need to go beyond simply reading and thinking about it. Instead, we must learn following or effortless action. It's a sort of purposeful acceptance of the way of the Tao, and living in harmony with it. This might seem bizarre, but most of Lao Tzu's suggestions are actually very simple. First, you ought to take more time for stillness. To the mind that is still, Lao Tzu said, the whole universe surrenders. We need to let go of our schedules, worries, and complex thoughts, for a while and simply experience the world. We spend so much time rushing from one place to the next in life, but Lao Tzu has written in the book that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. It is particularly important that we remember that certain things, grieving, growing wiser, developing a new relationship, only happen on their own schedule, like the changing of leaves in the fall, or the blossoming of the bulbs we planted months ago. When we are still and patient, we also need to be open. The usefulness of a pot comes from its emptiness. Lao Tzu said, "Empty yourself of everything, let your mind become still." If we are too busy, too preoccupied with anxiety or ambition, we will miss 1,000 moments of the human experience that are our natural inheritance. We need to be aware of the way sounds of the birds in the morning, the way other people look when they are laughing, and the feeling of the wind against our faces. These experiences reconnect us to parts of ourselves. This is another key point of Lao Tzu's writing: we need to be in touch with our real selves. We spend a great deal of time worrying about who we ought to become, but we should instead take time to be who we already are at heart. We might rediscover a generous impulse, a playful side we had forgotten, or simply an old affection for long walks. Our ego is often in the way of our true self, which must be found by being receptive to the outside world, rather than focusing on some critical, too ambitious internal image. When I let go of what I am, Lao Tzu wrote, I become what I might be. Nature is particularly useful for finding ourselves. Lao Tzu liked to compare different parts of nature to different virtues. He said, "The best people are like water, which benefits all things and does not compete with them. It stays in lowly places that others reject." This is why it is so similar to the Tao. Each part of nature can remind us of a quality we admire and should cultivate ourselves: the strength of the mountains, the resilience of trees, the cheerfulness of flowers. Of course, there are issues that must be addressed by action, and there are times for ambition. Yet Lao Tzu's work is important for Taoists and non-Taoists alike, especially in a modern world, distracted by technology, and focused on what seems to be constant, sudden, and severe changes. His words serve as a reminder of the importance of stillness, openness, and discovering buried yet central parts of ourselves. When you are to be simply yourself, and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. The truth is not always beautiful, nor are the beautiful words the truth. Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles, and the water is clear? The wise man is one who knows what he does not know. When there is no desire, all things are at peace. Quotes from Tao Te Ching, philosopher Lao Tzu. Hope this video finds you a bit light and dark. If you have any questions, please let me know. I would be happy to answer. Thank you.